The smell hit me first. Jasmine and bergamot, the signature scent of Maison Laurent, the most exclusive perfumery in Paris. The bottle cost more than most people's monthly rent. I found it tucked behind the bathroom mirror, still in its velvet box, addressed to someone named Vivian. "My name is Rachel." I set the perfume back exactly where I found it, my hands steady despite the ice spreading through my chest. 12 years of marriage had taught me patience. 12 years of being called practical Rachel and sensible Rachel, while my husband Dominic lived like a prince. 12 years of hearing how I'd never understand luxury, never appreciate the finer things, never be sophisticated enough for his world. What Dominic didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything. Every receipt, every credit card statement, every wire transfer. Not because I suspected infidelity, that was just Tuesday for Dominic, but because 6 months ago, I'd stumbled onto something far more interesting than another affair. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I discovered that my husband was stealing from his own family. The Castellanos were old money, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Dominic's grandfather had built a shipping empire that spanned 3 continents. When the old man died 4 years ago, he'd left everything in a complex trust structure, with Dominic as the primary beneficiary and his younger sister Isabel as the contingent heir. The trust documents were supposed to be confidential, locked away in the family attorney's office. But I was the one who organized Dominic's home office. I was the one who filed his papers while he was out at his business dinners. And I was the one who discovered the secret amendment, a document that would transfer complete control of the trust to Dominic permanently, requiring only one signature. Isabel's signature. The sister who'd been in a medically induced coma for 3 months after a suspicious car accident. The sister whose medical power of attorney Dominic had convinced me to help him obtain, claiming it was to protect her interests. The sister who was finally waking up this week. I heard the front door open, Dominic's confident footsteps on the marble foyer. "Rachel? Where are you, darling?" His voice was smooth, practiced. The same voice that had charmed me 15 years ago when I was a scholarship student working part-time at his family's charity gala. Back then, I thought I was Cinderella. I didn't realize I was being cast as the useful idiot. In the bathroom, I called out, my voice deliberately small and domestic. "Just cleaning." He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. At 43, Dominic was still handsome in that effortless way rich men maintain, personal trainers, dermatologists, tailored suits that cost more than cars. His dark hair was touched with distinguished silver at the temples. His smile was warm and empty, like expensive hotel art. "You're too good to me," he said, kissing my cheek without really looking at me. "I don't know what I'd do without you keeping everything so perfect." "That's what I'm here for," I replied, the dutiful wife. "How was your day?" "Exhausting. This business with Isabel's trust is giving me a migraine. The lawyers are being difficult about the transition protocols." He sighed heavily, playing the burdened family man. "I'm doing this for her, you know, to protect her assets while she recovers. But they make it so complicated." I nodded sympathetically, watching him in the mirror. "Is she really waking up? I've been so worried." "The doctors are optimistic. Maybe by the weekend." He paused, and I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Calculation measurement. "Actually, there's something I need to discuss with you. Something sensitive." "Of course. What is it?" He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. It was his tell, the gesture he used when he needed something. "The trust documents require multiple witnesses for the medical decisions I've been making on Isabel's behalf. Family witnesses, specifically. And since we're married legally, you count as family." My heart began to pound, but I kept my face soft and concerned. "What do you need me to do?" "Just sign some papers. Boring legal stuff. The lawyers need to verify that all the medical decisions were made properly, that Isabel received the best care." He smiled, squeezing my hand. "You've been so supportive through all of this. I knew I could count on you. When do you need me to sign?" Tomorrow. I've scheduled a meeting at the lawyer's office. 2 o'clock. He released my hand and checked his watch. I have to meet with the trustees tonight, another tedious dinner. Don't wait up. After he left, trailing a cloud of expensive cologne and lies, I sat on the edge of our bed and pulled out my phone. The private investigator's number was already in my favorites. It's happening, I said when she answered. He's moving tomorrow. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Detective Sarah Chen's voice was professional but concerned. We'd been working together for 3 months, ever since I'd hired her to investigate the accident that put Isabel in a coma. Once we spring this trap, there's no going back. I'm sure. And I was. Because I'd spent 12 years being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like a convenient appliance in Dominic's perfect life. And in those 12 years, I'd learned something crucial. People who think you're stupid will tell you everything. The documents are ready, Sarah said. We've got the forensic accountant standing by, the medical records expert, and the accident reconstruction specialist. If he tries to have you sign that power of attorney transfer tomorrow, we'll have him on attempted fraud, possibly conspiracy. Combined with what we've found about the accident. What about Isabel? I interrupted. Is she safe? The hospital has been alerted. Her room is being monitored, and we've got someone watching Dominic's movements. If he tries anything, he won't, I said quietly. Not yet. He thinks he's already won. Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you're enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. That night, I lay awake in our California king bed, listening to Dominic snore softly beside me. He'd come home late, smelling of wine and that perfume, jasmine and bergamot. In his sleep, he looked peaceful, content. A man who'd successfully orchestrated his sister's near-death, who was planning to steal her inheritance, who'd spent years treating his wife like an especially useful piece of furniture. Tomorrow, I would sign papers. Just not the ones he expected. The lawyer's office was everything you'd expect from a firm that handled $100 million trusts, mahogany panels, Persian rugs, original oil paintings worth more than most houses. Dominic's hand rested proprietarily on my lower back as we were ushered into the conference room. Mr. Castellano, Mrs. Castellano, the senior partner, a silver-haired man named Preston Webb, greeted us with practiced warmth. Thank you for coming. This shouldn't take long. But the room wasn't empty. Seated at the far end of the table was a woman I recognized from surveillance photos, Detective Sarah Chen, now in a crisp suit. Next to her sat 2 other people I didn't know, and a video camera on a tripod. Dominic's hand tightened on my back. What is this? Please have a seat, Preston said, his warmth evaporating. We have some irregularities to discuss regarding your sister's trust. Irregularities. Dominic's voice rose slightly. Preston, I don't know what this is about, but my wife and I came here in good faith. Your wife, Sarah interrupted, standing, came here to prevent you from committing fraud. Mrs. Castellano, thank you for your cooperation these past months. I watched Dominic's face as understanding dawned. The color drained from his cheeks. His eyes darted between me and Sarah, and I saw the exact moment he understood that I wasn't stupid, had never been stupid, had been watching and waiting and collecting evidence while he patted my head and called me his practical wife. Rachel. His voice cracked. What is this? What have you done? I took a seat at the table, across from the video camera. For 12 years, I'd made myself small. Not anymore. I documented everything Dominic. Every transfer, every forged signature, every payment to the mechanic who tampered with Isabel's brakes. I opened the folder in front of me, though I didn't need to look at the contents. I'd memorized every page. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the wire transfers from the trust accounts? The ones disguised as property maintenance and investment management fees that went straight to your personal offshore accounts. You're insane, he hissed, but there was panic in his eyes now. Preston, my wife is having some kind of breakdown. This is slander. Actually, Preston interrupted, his voice cold. The Trust's board has been conducting their own investigation, prompted by Mrs. Castellano's evidence. The forensic audit confirms systematic embezzlement going back 3 years. We estimate you've stolen approximately $47 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. And the accident? Sarah pulled out her own folder. Brake line tampering, confirmed by 3 independent experts. We have the mechanic on record. He's very interested in a plea deal. Dominic lunged toward me, but Sarah was faster, stepping between us. Don't, she warned. That's assault, and you're already in enough trouble. You set me up, Dominic breathed, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. This whole time, you thought I was too stupid to notice. I corrected. Too simple to understand your sophisticated financial schemes. Too grateful to have married above my station to question anything. I leaned forward. You were wrong. Preston cleared his throat. Mr. Castellano, there's more. Your grandfather's will contain a morality clause. Any beneficiary found guilty of fraud or attempted harm against another beneficiary forfeits their entire interest in the trust. You can't. We can. And we will. The trust board met this morning. You're formally removed as trustee, and all your benefits are suspended pending criminal investigation. Preston slid a document across the table. This is the amended trust structure. Upon your sister's recovery and at her discretion, she becomes the sole beneficiary. Until then, the trust is frozen. I watched Dominic crumble, his expensive facade cracking like cheap plaster. This was the man who'd told me I'd never afford luxury, never understand quality, never be anything but his convenient shadow. The man who'd bought diamond bracelets for girlfriends with money stolen from his comatose sister while I carried groceries up broken stairs. What about Rachel? He said suddenly, desperately. Community property, the prenup. She's entitled to half of everything I have. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. About that prenup, I said. The one your lawyers drew up before we got married? The one that gave me almost nothing if we divorced? I had it reviewed by specialists. Turns out, it's only valid if you disclosed all your assets honestly. I pulled out another document. You forgot to mention the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the stolen trust funds, which means the prenup is void. Sarah's smile matched mine. And since you used marital assets, including the home you shared with your wife, as collateral for your fraudulent activities, those assets are now subject to seizure. All of them. Additionally, Preston continued, clearly enjoying this more than a lawyer should, Mrs. Castellano has provided evidence that suggests you've been systematically hiding assets throughout your marriage. Under state law, that entitles her to a disproportionate share of any legitimate marital property. I stood up, smoothing my simple department store dress. The house is mine, Dominic. The cars, the art, the wine collection you loved so much, all mine. The judge signed the preliminary seizure order this morning. I paused. Oh, and that perfume you bought for Vivian? I had it delivered to your mother's house with a note explaining what it was. She's invited me to lunch next week to discuss your father's behavior patterns. Apparently, this runs in the family. Dominic's face had gone from pale to purple. You vindictive. Careful, Sarah warned. Threatening a witness is another charge. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and clear. You're going to be arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. Your assets, what few legitimate ones you actually have, will be frozen. The trust will be secured for Isabel. And I will be filing for divorce on grounds of fraud, with a full accounting of every lie you've told and every dollar you've stolen. You'll have nothing, Dominic spat. No one will believe you. I'm a Castellano. I corrected. You were Castellano. Now you're just a criminal. I gathered my papers. Oh, and about having nothing? I've already been accepted into the graduate program I applied to last year. The one you told me I was too old for, too stupid for, not sophisticated enough for. Turns out, they were very impressed with my research proposal on financial fraud in family trusts. I'll be starting in the fall. I walked toward the door, then paused. You know what the funny thing is, Dominic? You were right. I never did understand luxury. Not your kind, anyway. The kind that's stolen, that's built on cruelty and contempt. But I understand something better. I understand leverage. And patience. And the sweet, sweet satisfaction of watching someone who thinks they're untouchable finally face consequences. As Sarah led Dominic away in handcuffs, Preston turned to me. Mrs. Castellano, there's one more matter. Your sister-in-law is awake. She's been briefed on the situation and has asked to see you. Isabel's awake? My carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. Is she? Cognitive function is good. Physical therapy will take time, but the doctors are optimistic. He smiled slightly. She wanted me to tell you that she always knew you were the smart one in the family. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beep of monitors. Isabel looked small in the bed, her dark hair growing back in patches where they'd operated, but her eyes were alert and focused on me as I entered. Rachel. Her voice was hoarse but strong. They told me everything. What you did. I sat in the chair beside her bed, not sure what to say. We'd never been close. Dominic had made sure of that, always positioning me as the outsider, the scholarship girl who'd gotten lucky. But now, looking at her, I saw something different. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. I should have seen it sooner. I said finally. The accident. He's my brother. Was my brother. She reached for my hand, her grip weak but determined. I didn't see it either. But you saved my life, and probably saved the family fortune too. She paused. The trust board wants to compensate you. For your time, your evidence, everything you risked. I don't want anything from the trust, I said quickly. That's yours. What you want, Isabel said, her lips quirking, is to be free of the Castellano name and everything it represents. I understand. But you earned something, Rachel. You earned your own justice. She squeezed my hand. The house, the one Dominic claimed he bought? Turns out it was purchased with trust funds. Illegally. I'm signing it over to you. Free and clear. It's the least I can do. Isabel. Additionally, I'm establishing a foundation for domestic abuse survivors. Women who need help escaping relationships where they're controlled through money, through contempt, through systematic diminishment. Her eyes were fierce despite her weakened state. I want you to run it. Full salary, full benefits, and a budget that will actually help people. I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time in months. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll take what you've earned and build something better. She smiled. And maybe teach some other women that being called practical and simple doesn't mean you're either of those things. Sometimes it just means you're smart enough to let people underestimate you. That night, I stood in what was now legally my house, my name on the deed, my decision what to do with it, and poured myself a glass from Dominic's precious wine collection. The 1982 Chateau Lafite Rothschild he'd been saving for a special occasion. $50,000 a bottle. It tasted like victory. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. He's been officially charged. No bail. His mother's lawyer called. She's disowning him publicly. Thought you'd want to know. I did want to know. I wanted to know every detail of his fall. Every moment of his realization that the wife he dismissed as too stupid to notice his crimes was the one who documented everything. Every wire transfer, every forged signature, every contemptuous comment he'd made while I smiled and played the simple, practical wife. But more than that, I wanted to build something new. I opened my laptop, looking at the acceptance letter from the graduate program. In the fall, I'd start studying forensic accounting, specializing in family trust fraud. I'd use everything I'd learned these past months to help other people spot the warning signs, protect themselves, fight back. Dominic had been right about one thing. I'd never understand his kind of luxury. The kind built on theft and cruelty, on making other people feel small so you could feel big. But I understood something better. I understood that real power isn't in diamond bracelets and expensive perfume. It's in knowledge, patience, and the quiet satisfaction of watching justice unfold exactly as you planned it.
The doorbell rang.
I checked the security camera, another upgrade I'd installed immediately, and saw a delivery person with a large box. "Package for Mrs. Castellano," he said when I opened the door. "Actually," I corrected, signing for the box, "it's Miss Parker now. Rachel Parker." Inside the box was a bottle of perfume. Maison Laurent, jasmine and bergamot. The card read, "For understanding that luxury isn't what we wear, it's who we are. With admiration and gratitude, Isabel." I smiled, setting the bottle on my shelf. Tomorrow, I'd start packing up Dominic's things, donating his expensive suits and watches to charity. I'd convert his office into a study space for my graduate work. I'd repaint the bedroom, erase every trace of him from these walls. But tonight, I'd sit in my house, drink my wine, and savor the fact that the man who said I'd never afford luxury was sitting in a jail cell, while I owned everything he'd claimed as his. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I'd learned something better. Revenge is a dish best served systematically, thoroughly, and with ironclad documentation. And it tasted sweeter than any luxury Dominic could have bought. 3 months after Dominic's arrest, I stood in the courthouse hallway waiting for the sentencing hearing. The marble floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, and everywhere I looked, I saw ghosts of the life I'd left behind. Women in designer suits who reminded me of the trophy wives at Dominic's parties, lawyers in expensive shoes who'd once looked through me like I was furniture. But today I wore my own armor. Not a borrowed identity, not a mask of submission. Just a well-fitted suit I'd bought with my own money, and the confidence of someone who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. "Rachel." Isabel approached, leaning slightly on her cane. 3 months of physical therapy had worked miracles, but the limp would probably never fully disappear. "You ready for this? Are you?" I asked, searching her face. Today she'd be giving her victim impact statement, facing the brother who'd tried to kill her for money. I've been ready since the day I woke up and remembered his face. Her jaw tightened. "He visited me in the hospital, 2 days before the accident. Told me I was being selfish keeping my share of the trust, that grandfather would have wanted him to have control. When I refused to sign anything, he looked at me with such hatred." She paused. I should have known then. The courtroom doors opened. Inside, Dominic sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive haircut grown out, his face haggard. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Rage, perhaps, or disbelief that I was still standing while his world had crumbled. The prosecutor had built an airtight case. The evidence I'd provided, bank records, wire transfers, emails, formed the foundation. The mechanic who tampered with Isabel's brakes had taken a plea deal and testified against Dominic in exchange for a reduced sentence. The forensic accountants had traced every stolen dollar, every shell company, every lie. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began, her voice clear and steady, "the defendant engaged in a systematic scheme to defraud his own family trust, embezzling over $47 million across 3 years. When his sister refused to grant him additional control, he attempted to murder her, staging a car accident that left her in a coma for 3 months. I watched Dominic's lawyer, a public defender now, since his assets were frozen, try to mount a defense based on family pressure and mental health. But the evidence was overwhelming. You can't argue with brake line cuts and offshore accounts. When it was Isabel's turn to speak, she stood slowly, her cane tapping against the floor. The courtroom went silent. "My brother told me once that I didn't understand money, that I was too emotional to manage my inheritance responsibly." Her voice didn't waver. "He said women like me needed men like him to make the hard decisions. And I believed him for a while. I thought maybe he was right, that I was naive, that he knew better." She turned to face Dominic directly. "But you didn't try to kill me because you understood money better. You tried to kill me because you wanted it more. Because in your mind, wanting something desperately enough entitled you to have it, regardless of who you hurt." She paused. "You almost succeeded. But you forgot one thing. The woman you dismissed as too simple to notice your crimes was smarter than both of us combined." Isabel looked at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. Rachel Parker saved my life. She documented everything while you called her practical and simple, while you treated her like she was lucky to carry your groceries. She's worth more than you ever were, and it's my privilege to call her family. The judge called me forward next. I hadn't planned to speak, but Isabel's words gave me courage. Your Honor, I lived with Dominic Castellano for 12 years. I watched him charm and manipulate and lie to everyone around him. He told me I'd never afford luxury, never understand quality, never be anything more than grateful for his attention. I looked at Dominic, and his eyes dropped. He was wrong about all of it. I understand plenty. I understand that real luxury isn't stolen money or expensive perfume. It's freedom. It's safety. It's waking up in a home that's truly yours, with people who see your value. I took a breath. I also understand that if given the opportunity, he'll do this again.
To someone else, somewhere else.
He won't change because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. He thinks he's the victim here. The judge's face was stern as she delivered the sentence. Mr. Castellano, you've been found guilty on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. The evidence presented shows a calculated pattern of abuse, manipulation, and violence. She paused, letting the weight settle. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in federal prison, without possibility of parole for 15 years. Additionally, you are ordered to make full restitution of all stolen funds to the Castellano Family Trust. 25 years. Dominic's face went white. His lawyer was already preparing an appeal, but we both knew it was futile. The evidence was ironclad. As they led him away, Dominic looked at me one last time. This isn't over, he mouthed.
But it was.
It absolutely was. 6 months later, I stood in the ballroom of the same hotel where I'd first met Dominic 15 years ago. But this time, I wasn't serving champagne at a charity gala. I was hosting one. The Isabel Castellano Foundation for Survivor Empowerment had officially launched, and the room was filled with donors, advocates, and most importantly, survivors. Women who'd escaped relationships where they'd been controlled through money, isolated from support, told they were too stupid or too simple to manage their own lives. Quite a turnout, Sarah said, appearing at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. She'd become more than my investigator. She was a friend, one of the few who'd seen me at my lowest and helped me rise. Isabel's name opens doors, I admitted, scanning the crowd. But the mission sells itself. You sell it, Sarah corrected. I've watched you present to donors, Rachel. You're not the same woman who hired me in a coffee shop, whispering about her suspicions. She was right. That woman, scared, uncertain, still half believing Dominic's assessment of her intelligence, was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned that patience and documentation were more powerful than any confrontation, that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage. Rachel Parker? A woman approached, her designer suit impeccable, her smile warm but cautious. I'm Victoria Chen. I work in estate law, and I've been following your foundation's work. I have a client who might need your services, a woman in a situation similar to what you experienced. I handed her my card. Have her call anytime. We offer financial literacy workshops, legal referrals, emergency housing assistance, whatever she needs to escape safely. Actually, Victoria hesitated, I was hoping you might consult on her case directly. Her husband is hiding assets through a complex trust structure. It's beyond my expertise, but given your background. She trailed off delicately. I smiled. I'd be happy to help. That's exactly why we're here. As Victoria walked away, Isabel joined me, moving more confidently now with just a slight limp remaining. The trust fund is officially released from legal hold, she announced. Every dollar Dominic stole has been returned, and the forensic audit is complete. She pulled out an envelope. This is for you. Isabel, we talked about this. Open it. Inside was a check for $5 million. That's your finder's fee, Isabel said firmly. You uncovered the fraud, provided the evidence, and quite literally saved my life. The trust board voted unanimously. And before you argue, she held up her hand, remember that we also established a $20 million endowment for the foundation. This is separate. This is yours, personally, for everything you risked and everything you lost. I stared at the check, my eyes blurring. $5 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having, earned not through marriage or luck, but through my own intelligence and courage. There's more, Isabel continued. I'm restructuring my entire estate plan. I want you on my advisory board. I need someone I can trust, someone who actually understands what these numbers mean and won't steal from me. She smiled slightly. Someone who's proven they're not dazzled by the Castellano name. I don't know what to say.
Say yes.
Say you'll help me turn this family legacy into something that actually helps people instead of destroying them. I thought about Dominic in prison, about the women I'd met through the foundation who'd escaped similar situations, about the person I'd been when this all started, small and scared and convinced she was lucky to be tolerated. Yes, I said. Absolutely yes. 1 year after Dominic's sentencing, I received an unexpected letter. The return address was the federal prison where he was serving his sentence. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Rachel, I'm writing this letter because my therapist says I need to take accountability for my actions. I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect forgiveness. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did. To you, to Isabel, to everyone who trusted me. The truth is, I knew you were smart. I always knew. That's why I worked so hard to make you think you weren't. Because smart, confident Rachel would have left me years ago. Would have seen through me immediately. You asked once what I saw in you when we met. I told you it was your kindness, your genuineness. That was a lie. What I saw was someone I could control. Someone from a different world who'd be grateful enough not to ask questions. I chose you deliberately, Rachel. Just like I chose every girlfriend who'd accept expensive gifts without wondering where the money came from. I don't expect you to care, but I want you to know what you did, documenting everything, building your case while I thought you were too simple to notice. That was brilliant. If I hadn't been the target, I'd have been impressed. You outplayed me completely. The man you married doesn't exist anymore.
Prison does that.
I'm being transferred to a facility in Nevada next month, farther from everyone I knew. Maybe that's better. Maybe I deserve to be forgotten. I won't write again. But I needed you to know that you were right. About all of it. Dominic. I read the letter twice, then filed it away in the box with all the other documentation from the case. Not because I forgave him or felt sympathy, but because it was evidence of something important, that the mask had finally fallen, that he'd been forced to confront who he really was. But mostly, I filed it away because I had more important things to focus on. My graduate thesis on financial fraud in family trusts had been accepted for publication. 3 universities had reached out about teaching positions. The foundation had helped 47 women escape financially abusive situations in its first year, and we were expanding to include legal aid and job training programs. And personally, I'd started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I'd learned to recognize the red flags, to trust my instincts, to never again make myself small for someone else's comfort. The house, my house, had been transformed. Dominic's office was now my study, filled with case files and textbooks. His wine cellar had been converted to a safe room for women who needed emergency housing. His collection of expensive art had been sold, with proceeds going to the foundation. Every trace of him was gone except the lessons he'd taught me, that appearances could be deceiving, that patience was more powerful than confrontation, and that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest gift you could receive. 2 years after everything began, I stood in Isabel's newly renovated home office, looking at the wall of photos. Pictures of foundation beneficiaries who'd escaped, rebuilt their lives, found their strength. Each face told a story of survival, of women who'd been told they were too stupid, too simple, too grateful to question the men who controlled them. We just got our nonprofit accreditation approved, Isabel announced, entering with champagne. Real champagne this time, not Dominic's stolen bottles. And 3 new corporate sponsors committed this morning. We're fully funded for the next 5 years. We toasted, the crystal glasses catching afternoon light. Do you ever regret it? Isabel asked quietly. Not the revenge. I know you don't regret that.
But the years you spent married to him.
The time you lost. I considered the question carefully. I regret that I didn't see it sooner. That I let him convince me I was lucky to be tolerated instead of demanding to be valued. I paused. But I don't regret the skills I learned. How to be patient, how to document everything, how to build an airtight case. Those skills are helping people now. Still, Isabel pressed, he stole 12 years of your life. No, I corrected gently.
He borrowed them.
And I'm taking those lessons and turning them into something he could never build, something honest, something helpful, something real. My phone buzzed with a message from Victoria, the estate lawyer I'd met at the gala. Another client who needed help uncovering hidden assets, another woman who'd been told she was too simple to understand her own finances. I have to go, I told Isabel. Someone needs help. She smiled, understanding in her eyes. That's what I love about you, Rachel. You took the worst experience of your life and turned it into your purpose. As I drove through the city toward my meeting, I thought about Dominic's letter, about his claim that prison had changed him. Maybe it had. Maybe he really understood now what he'd done. But it didn't matter. His redemption wasn't my responsibility. My responsibility was to the women who came after, who needed someone to tell them that practical wasn't an insult, that simple didn't mean stupid, and that surviving wasn't the same as winning. I'd survived Dominic. But I'd done more than that. I documented his crimes, protected his sister, reclaimed my identity, and built something meaningful from the wreckage. That night, alone in my house, my name on the deed, my rules on the walls, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood at the window overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, Dominic was in a prison cell, counting down 15 years until he could even apply for parole. And I was free. Free to study, to work, to help others, to build the life I'd always deserved. He told me I'd never afford luxury. But he'd been wrong about what luxury meant. It wasn't diamond bracelets or expensive perfume or stolen money. Luxury was choice. It was safety. It was waking up every morning knowing that the only person who controlled your life was you. And that I could afford just fine. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.